Hello everyone, welcome back to Life is Unfair, my Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous playthrough series. Today we are finally getting into the Grey Garrison. This was a tough section for my party, who are not optimally built. If you've been following along with the series, you know that we are far from optimally built. Some of the fights you will find are tougher than others, and you may be a little bit surprised as to which fights turned out to be the hard ones. As for the boss itself, well, no spoilers, but it was also a pain in the ass. A complete RNG fest. But there are some things that you can do to make it a little bit easier on yourself. So what I'm going to be doing here is, speeding through sections that are uninteresting and speeding through, in fact, most of my attempts on most of the fights, and just showing you kind of the final attempt and talking about how I actually tackled the more challenging encounters. But that's about it for the intro. Thanks for joining me, guys, and let's get into the actual content. So this first encounter here, doesn't prove to be too challenging. It does take a few attempts just getting a feel for how the fights are spaced out, what to kind of expect going forward. Do get in a few attempts before this one fail. I try to kind of YOLO it initially, which obviously doesn't work. Unfair is living up to its name, and is extremely unfair. And then we opt to buff up and go for the standard CC buff up. But we have a few more tools at our disposal here that make a big difference. Right, Stinking Cloud is amazing. But I will say one thing about Stinking Cloud, it really helps against humanoids, but later on in the game, it makes a little bit less of a difference. And if you're a melee-heavy team, it can be, pretty useless. It can be actually a huge detriment to you because it affects your own guys. But my team, I just have Razor Fiend up front tanking everything, and then the rest of my party standing back and shooting from range. So Stinking Cloud in this place is an absolute godsend. So just run around, obviously looting up the place, check in every nook and cranny to make sure we don't miss anything. Then we run into our next encounter over here, which is a couple of Vermleks. It's just two of them, so I'm pretty confident going into this fight because obviously I'm still kind of fully buffed, but they still are a nasty group of buggers, right? They just spam, inflict light mass wounds, and everyone just gets hit by it. But thankfully we are able to take this down. I decide, you know what, I'm not going to reload here. We took him down, that's it, let's move on. So just a bit of a forewarning here, there are a ton of encounters in this place, there are a ton of them. So we're going to be doing a lot of skipping around. And here you can see this is the first kind of challenging encounter that we run into. It's a huge group of primarily demons, lots of Abrikandilus, and then some ranged dudes as well. So what I decide to do is, instead of fighting them head on over there, I decide to pull them around the corner into this room here. That way the ranged guys, they can't shoot at me from way back there and just destroy my whole party. So we're trying different things, pull them into the doorway, CC them at the doorway, but it's heavy RNG, right? So web and grease play a pivotal role in getting me through this fight. You can see my buffs are starting to wear off finally, but we do eventually get it down with a bit of luck and CC landing on the right people. Web turns out to not be such a good idea because it keeps a lot of the enemies I can't hit the enemies that are webbed, and although it does stagger them, it does add some complications to the whole thing. So again, just blocking the doorway with Razor Fiend, he's tanking his back. But unfortunately, you can see the sharpshooters, when they come up, they decide, instead of shooting at Razor Fiend, a lot of them just shoot at my backline. The AI on some of the enemies in this game it's cool. It's just really cool. And I can say I'm in Act 2 right now. I'm kind of at the beginning of Act 2, I've completed a few quests. There's some ridiculous content in Act 2. But there is one fight in particular in Act 2 where you're fighting just waves of gargoyles, and it is the most frustrating fight in the entire world because they just ignore the tank. Even in the beginning of the fight, they don't even target him, they just go straight for the back line and just wipe out everybody there. And it took me so long to do that. But yeah, let's we'll talk about that when we get there. Let's focus on the present, or I guess the past and the present for you guys watching. And yeah, it's a lot of luck here, right? Grease is definitely doing its job here. Unfortunately, does knock down Razor Fiend, as it is wont to do occasionally. But surprisingly, my Razor Fiend is able to stand up to a lot of the CC. The worst one for him is definitely Stinking Cloud. That one just affects him terribly, but thankfully, you know, all he has to do in Stinking Cloud is stand there and take hits. It's the rest of the party that actually has to do the damage. So you can see here, I am one hit away from dying, right? If that thing hits me, I am dead. It's over. Even if it hits me now, it's over. So there's so much luck here. Getting very lucky. Very lucky. I'm not worried about the Dretch. They can barely ever hit. They almost never land a single hit on Razor Fiend. It's these Abrikandilu. They absolutely truck me. Right, level 5. At this point, I'm still only level... I think I'm level 6 at... No, I think I'm still level 5 at this point. And yeah. It's just... We're hoping that we can take it down before it takes us down, doing everything you can. Magic Missile comes in handy, definitely, because you know, can hit for up to 18 damage, which is pretty solid. And then I'm just lay on hands. Unfortunately, Wogif is down, and Lan are down. My two biggest DPS are both down. But Razor Fiend is able to come in clutch there. And then Grease is really good, because and not only does it knock them down, but when they get up, I get a free attack of opportunity on them. And Razor Fiend hits pretty damn hard, so in a lot of cases, it just annihilates them, just explodes them. Yeah, this is the last bit of this encounter. We thankfully are able to get it down, and then we move on. So there's a bit of cutscene here with these brave fighters defending against the demon hordes. You can see down there Vermlek. And there's Staunton Vane, our good friend Staunton Vane, and his, I guess his side chick Minago. Oh no, they're she's trying to seduce him again, and he's really trying not to. Really trying not to fall for it. But yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. So on with the show. Yeah, she's really trying her best to sink her slimy claws back into our poor friend Staunton Vane there. Hopefully it doesn't work, but we shall have to find out. So then, yeah, proceed on ahead. And if you do remember, this is one of the areas that we do pass through on our way back from the Netherlands, from the land of the mongrels. That magic door, if you guys remember. But yeah, there are enemies down here now. So there's an encounter down here that's kind of painful. A lot of ranged dudes, a lot of very painful melee dudes. So it comes down to, you know, the standard CC and yeah, tank them in that doorway so that their melee are not able to destroy my backline. And then the CC here does prove to be a bit hilarious because that entanglement is able to hit enemies that are nowhere, you know, that are not even able to enter the fight here. So if you look just above the doorway there are enemies on the other side of that magic door that have actually been aggroed over there. And they're aggroed on my backline, but they can't get to them, thankfully. They can't do anything, they can just walk around there and imagine the possibilities. But then there's another problem here, right? So I am able to take down all these guys pretty easily, but there are some in the pit as well, but I do pull a bunch of Dretch that are not part of this pack. So I have to deal with them in addition to all the guys that are still in the pit. And I'm kind of having a bit... You can see I just... I think one of my guys decided to take a dive there into the pit. That is one of the disadvantages of CC without having the meta magic that protects your party from it, right? Selective spell, which allows you to not affect your party with negative effect and only affect your party with positive effects. But I haven't really done that yet. So now you can see all the enemies are finally at a CC, and it's like, oh god, come on, kill the wizard, kill the wizard. You got it. On to the next. Thankfully, right when out of the frying pan into the fire, so to say, out of the pit straight into the grease, or out of the frying pan into the oil, I guess. The grease is kind of like the oil. So, and then they fall over, and then, you know, I decide, okay, let's not focus the guys that are on the ground. Although, honestly, in this case, the Dretch are not really much of a threat. They are a threat to my backline, but to Razor Fiend, they barely do anything. So the smart thing to do would, here, that I didn't do, would be to target the Cultists with my entire ranged group, and just let the Razor Fiend tank the Dretch, all of them, while having Lan, Ember, Nenyo, and Wolf target the, and Camellia, of course, let's not forget Camellia, and have them all target the Cultists here, because the Cultists are a huge threat to Razor Fiend and to the backline.
Make every strike count.
So you can see here, it's a lot of aggro management, juggling those dotted red lines to make sure that they stay focused on me. Notice me, senpai, kinda, right? I don't want... Because the second that cultist gets to the back line, it will instantly wipe it out. It'll one-shot everyone right there. They don't stand a chance, right? If they even dodge a single hit, that is extreme luck. But yeah, I'm gonna fast forward through the rest of this encounter because it's basically done at this point, right? Nothing much left to see. So we do finish off the remaining Dretch with relative ease, and then we're on to the next set of encounters here. So this next encounter, oh well, actually before that, this next encounter is optional. I go down to the, you know, where we came up from, the Netherlands, and there are some mongrels down there and some Dretch spawn and a bit of loot. You know, just say hi to our mongrel friends who swear their eternal fealty to me for saving them from the clutches of Wendoag and the cult of Baphomet and all that good stuff. But yeah, we move on after that, and then we come to this fight here, which is kind of interesting because it's an optional encounter. There are a few of these here. Where you walk into the room and the enemies are so focused on doing whatever they're doing that they don't even turn to attack you. So technically, I think you could just walk through this room without even fighting these guys. And on Unfair, it might not be the worst idea because a group of, 5, 6 Abrikandilu with wreckers in there is an absolute nightmare. It took a lot of work, right? I had to pull them back to the other doorway, the smaller doorway, so they couldn't get by me, and then I'm using, you know, a ton of stuff to try and take them down. But we are finally able to get them down using a little bit of ingenuity and a lot of luck, which is a good description for almost every encounter in this entire place, or in this entire playthrough, honestly, just Unfair. So I pull them back to my party with Lan. I'm trying to stagger them, right, ideally, and then Razor Fiend is going to block the doorway. Thankfully they're all ranged, right, so I don't have to worry about them shooting Lan or casting any sort of CC on him. It's just, he just has to run straight back and make it there. The rest of my party waiting in stealth so we can get some stealth attacks, sneak attacks in, which they do, and then, right, we chunk the first Abrikandilu down, so that's definitely a lot of luck. And then we position, waiting for the rest of them, get ready to drop some grease, things like that. Obviously, that was a poorly placed grease. Woljif had to run around the corner to drop that. So the biggest problem with this fight in particular, and the reason I'm pulling them back here, is because after... It isn't just this fight, it's any prolonged encounter in this game. the enemies get bored of the tank and they just go for the back line after a while. They just stop attacking the tank and they just go straight for the rest of your party, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. Except, so the one thing you can do about it is switch it to turn-based mode and walk in front of the enemy that's running towards the back of your party, but that will often give them a free attack of opportunity. And it brings, and you know, that means initiative rolls come into play and all that, so it's not a really good solution. Ideally, you just want to block it, any doorway or anything in such a way that they can't get to your backline. Or ideally, just deal with the encounter before that happens, but that's really not an option all the time. So here, just using everything in my power to try and take them down. Unfortunately, that color spray did more harm than good with Razor Fiend. Thankfully, none of the enemies try and land a hit while he's CC'd there.
You've crossed the wrong mongrel.
So, this encounter the Wrecker is the biggest problem here. It just does so much damage and hits so consistently, and I got very lucky here that it is the one in the back line. So it's the one that is the last to get to Razor Fiend, and so we're kind of able to deal with all his friends without having to touch him at all until the rest of them are dead. And it's a real problem because he's a real problem because he does the most damage, he hits the most consistently, but he's also the hardest to kill. So if you focus all your efforts on him, then the other 5 are just beating on you while you're trying to kill him, and it takes a long time. But if you don't focus him and you focus the other ones down, right, you have to kill 5 of them before you're able to get to him. So if you're not able to get a lucky roll like this and have him in the back line, then you're going to have to start on the regular Abrikandilu, maybe take a couple of them down, then switch over to the Wrecker, and then finish it off, because it's a nightmare. It is an absolute piece of work to take down. Right. You can see here, right, I'm not landing many hits. Gotta use that Smite Evil, gotta make good use of that. It's something that I don't use often enough, but it's a really useful spell, especially when you're standing toe-to-toe in one-on-one encounters. It makes a big difference. Then I try and use Evil Eye here with Ember, and it actually, does it work here? It worked. Yeah, it worked. So we actually managed to get Evil Eye on him, thankfully, which helps a lot, which helps a ton there. So I'm trying my luck here, trying to put it to sleep with Ember again, and it works, right? It actually works. Slumber actually works, but I don't think my party actually notices it here. So we could have coup de grace, cast coup de grace on him there, but we didn't. We just killed him. Conventional warfare at its finest. But yeah, that's basically all of this encounter. So we're going to speed through the rest. So after that, right, proceed. Here's an important thing right here. Pay attention to it. These magical essences, you definitely don't want to miss them. They are for a very important item that you can acquire in Act 2. So don't miss those. That's the 4th one. First one, I think, is in Blackwing Library. Second is in Gwyrm Manor. Third in Tower of Estrad. And this is the 4th one. I think there are 6 in total in Act 1. But after that, right, we proceed. A pretty nasty encounter in that room there that is forced upon you. If you even open the door, they just aggro, and you probably won't be surviving in unfair. But there's another set of enemies in the hallway that will aggro in addition to the guys in the room. So I decide, okay, we're not going to touch those room guys, we're just going to take out the hallway guys. It does take a bit of work to get them down, right? Deskari cultists are not pleasant at all. And then we have an archer, and we have a cleric as well, who's nasty. But thankfully, Razor Fiend is just absolutely crushing these dudes with his big-ass sword, flaming sword, while everyone else kind of throws spitballs at them from the back line. And thankfully that archer is opting into melee, right? Otherwise, instead of shooting at my backline, because backline here, super vulnerable. And yeah, we're able to take down this encounter without too much trouble at all. And then move on. Which we're going to do right. On with the show. So yeah, we decided to skip the guys in the room. So this is a pretty interesting thing here. It requires a really high trickery score here. You can see, right, the DC is 39. But it is absolutely worth doing. So here I have Camellia, she's my highest trickery character, and I use the Signet to get her another 5 trickery, and she succeeds with a roll of 19. She gets a 42, and you get 960 EXP for that one trap, which is huge. So definitely do it, not only for the EXP, but for the stuff that you pick up in these rooms here. So that sword is pretty nice, Malady, and this thing, Tankard of Free Spirits, is absolutely amazing. You can use it once a day. It summons an Azata that like casts nukes and does massive amounts of AoE damage, so you 100% want this. It's pivotal on a lot of the fights going forward, for me at least. So definitely pick that up. And then in this room over here, I'm able to get some more stuff. Malady, not so good, it's just the sword. But here, a shiny dagger, definitely something that I needed on Woljif, right, so I can switch out now his other masterwork dagger. And so yeah, moving on with the show. So after that, I'm just putting out my feelers. Well, obviously no, after that I'm leveling up. So I leveled up, thankfully, in part to that trap, which gave such a huge chunk of XP. I cannot believe one trap gave that much. I kind of want to see how much damage that thing would have done. Probably would have wiped out my whole party, but that's what a lot of traps do nowadays. So yeah, we level up and then putting out my feelers, right? So I'm trying to figure out which encounters are going to be the easiest ones moving forward. I try coming back to these guys in this room, and they're tough. It's a lot of melee dudes. I gotta load up on my spells optimally. I have new spell slots on a lot of the characters, so changing around my spells. Nothing too interesting here. Just dealing with meta magic spells, but unfortunately meta magic ups the levels of a lot of spells, so it makes them impossible to cast, the ones that I want. Impossible to cast for me, even at this level. We try the Succubus here, who absolutely annihilates us, unfortunately. And then, right, another Succubus, but now she has a bunch of dudes with her, not just 2 dudes. But thankfully these guys don't hit as hard as the entranced fighters with the other Succubus, but it's still not an easy encounter. Then we try the guys back at the end of the trap hallway, and this one is really tough, because so if you go into the side room here and attack the guy that's staring at the bookshelf, like the Abrikandilu in the other place, he doesn't attack you unless you kind of attack him or walk right up to him. But if you attack him, all the enemies from further up ahead come and just destroy you. And I don't know if you noticed there, I actually did summon the Azata for a second. It looks pretty awesome. But you will see it in a lot of my fights going forward, especially in Act 2. I use it a lot. But here, yeah, we're trying to take out the guys. We decide after all that, right, trying the guys in the hallway, trying the Succubus. We're like, okay, this is the next fight, so we got to take these guys down. So what I opt to do is the standard thing, right? Razor Fiend in front of the door with displacement and buffs. Everyone else in different, so you can see how I've positioned everyone here very carefully. I've positioned everyone away from each other, and that is done intentionally, because what this guy does is the second he walks out of the room and he ignores Razor Fiend, or even when he gets to the doorway, he ignores Razor Fiend and he just throws like fire bombs at the whole party and wipes them out. So this is actually a really tough fight. Maybe speeding through it wasn't the best idea here. You don't really get an idea of what's involved here. You can see there I had my entire party standing off in the corner there because I didn't want him to just destroy them with firebombs. So I only bring them in after Razor Fiend has absorbed kind of the first one, right? I put fire resist on Razor Fiend. You definitely want to put fire resist on whoever's tanking. And all that, and grease in the doorway, right, to knock people down. And you can see I'm moving everyone away because I'm really scared that he's just gonna come and annihilate them here. But thankfully we're able to like take these guys. This was a very good attempt, because we're able to hit these guys and take them down one by one without actually getting destroyed by the native dude. One good thing is a lot of these guys spend a huge amount of time casting buffs, which is very lucky. But yeah, so and a lot of them are melees. Actually, everybody in this room is melee except the main guy, who throws out those fire bombs. But thankfully, he was one of the first to go down. So following that, right, it's a question of, you can see there, I just annihilate Razor Fiend, just kill two of them in basically one hit. One attack of opportunity and one just actual hit. So after that, right, loot up the room. We're gonna fast forward through this bit right here. So after taking those guys down, it's on to the next encounter, which is coming up pretty soon here. We opt to take on the Succubus and all these dudes. It actually doesn't turn out to be as difficult as one might think. I'm actually able to take it down on this attempt right here, which is like my second attempt after the first one where I got absolutely trucked. And the only difference is this time I use Stinking Cloud, which I'm fighting a bunch of humanoids, so it makes a huge difference against them. Obviously use some grease to knock them over. You can see, unfortunately, one of the recruits has opted to just go smack the back line. But look at that. Look at that. Like, almost one-shotted Ember, that one dude did. That one recruit almost one-shotted Ember. That's what we're dealing with here. But thankfully the rest of them are affected by the Stinking Cloud, right? So it's really working well. Throwing a web here for some additional security. And you can see the Succubus is not really doing all that much. I'm just able to stay back. So the priority here, obviously, the easy to take out guys, right? So focus on the recruits, focus on the Crusaders, and then switch your focus over to the Succubus. Make sure you do have protection from evil, stuff like that, right? So the buffs that you definitely want here, in addition to displacement, in addition to, bear strength and endurance, are protection from evil. So the Succubus cannot mind control anyone. And then, right, after that, things like Bless, Haste, obviously play a very big role here. You should have the Extend Meta Magic Rod by this point, so your Haste should last for a good amount of time, a good amount of the fight. Also, Displacement should last for a good amount of the fight, but you can see here, right, my Displacement's already worn off. My haste is already worn off because I used most of that on the previous encounter. And right here I try to put her to sleep with Slumber. If that works, obviously that's the best possible solution. But you can see here that it doesn't work. And you can see, right, she rolls a 6. If she had rolled a 3, well, she'd have to roll a 2 in order for you to actually land the Slumber on her. So 1 in 10 chance. So, it's a possibility. It's something you can try if you're having trouble with this. You can cheese it by just repeatedly casting Slumber on her, hoping for that 1 in 10. But by this point of the game, you should be able to take her on with Magic Missile. Magic Missile is really important, right? So level 8 Succubus here, and you can see her immunities. Ember is so useful. Her Cure Serious Wounds is such an amazing addition to the party, because she's just able to keep Razor Fiend alive, and he's able to tank most of the stuff. Displacement would definitely be pretty handy here, but unfortunately don't have it because I went right out of one huge fight into this one. So I'm like, yeah, let's refresh it, give ourselves the best possible chance, because after this I know that I'm basically going to have to rest, most likely, because the next fight was the one in the hallway, and that's a tough fight as well.
Go for their heart.
Depending on how you play it. So yeah, I'm gonna fast forward through. Well, no, you can see she dies pretty soon after this, and then we head on out to the next encounter here. And you can see she does her standard Succubus thing, where she decides to ignore Razor Fiend, so the fight lasted too long there. And that's actually why I didn't want to fast forward through this, because you get an idea of what happens here. If the fight lasts too long, she just switches off Razor Fiend and she switches on to everybody else in the party, and she will not get back onto Razor Fiend until everyone is dead. The only way around that is to switch into turn-based mode, and then sometimes she will switch back to your tank. So here there's a puzzle here, and I'm just trying different iterations, reading through the sermon, reading through the books, trying to figure out what the actual mechanism is here to unlock it. Right, it talks about shield, sword, all those symbols. But in the end, I figure out that it's a sound puzzle. You go from lowest to highest note. Thankfully, I'm not tone deaf. If you are tone deaf, it'll be a bit of a challenging puzzle. But I think that the switches stay the same through every playthrough. But even if they don't, you can just go from lowest note to highest note, and that's the solution here. So after you do that, you get this room unlocked here. There's some nice loot in here. Heavy loot. By this point in the run, you can see my weight is massive, so I'm forced to drop a bunch of stuff so I can continue to actually move. But I will say that you can carry everything with you from one location to another. So when you proceed up to the next floor, you're able to take all the loot with you. So don't worry about dropping anything. So here we get back to the encounter in the hallway. It is an absolute nightmare, these guys are, because in addition to Vermleks that keeps spamming inflict wound, mass inflict wound, there are a bunch of cultists. And so initially I'm like, okay, let's ignore the guy in the side room and let's just focus on these guys. It's one less person to deal with. Let's block the doorway, let's stand back and all that. But this trap, the trap over there is proving to be just an absolute nightmare for positioning. So I'm like, okay, we have to kill the guy in this room. So what I do is I walk into the room and I just have everybody focus him down, just everybody take a shot at him with a ranged weapon, and thankfully it kills him in one hit, and he dies so fast that these guys are not able to make it down in time. So I'm able to re-stealth and I'm able to save, but the side effect of that is they have moved a little bit towards me. And so every time you save here, they move a little bit closer, closer, and you'll end up trapping yourself in the room. So make sure you do have saves further back, not too far back before you start this whole encounter, so that you don't end up in a no-win situation, because that is entirely possible, right? If you pull too many of them to the doorway, and then every time you load, they're like right outside, and it's a no-win situation, that you're going to be forced to load an older save. Here you can see I get very lucky, a bunch of them trip out there, and then I'm able to save again after taking down this Cambion. And so this entire encounter is this, right? I've placed a few grease out there, I've placed some web in the further hallway, so between the grease and the web, it's really staggering them very, very well. And so, right, you can see now 3 of them come. Unfortunately, Razor Fiend takes a tumble there. The 2 of them are just standing there. The Vermlek thankfully does not get involved here, and it falls over. That falling over is actually crucial to me winning this fight, because it means I can take out this Cambion rogue really quick, and then I'm able to take out the Cambion fighter right after that, and the Vermlek still has not gotten up. It's still down on the floor. There are 2 Vermleks out there. So one of them is blocking the other one. The one that's downed is actually blocking the second one from getting in here. And then, right, so we take down the fighter really quick, and then, right, we're trying to re-stealth. It's like, okay, please, if the Vermlek comes here, it's gonna be, it's bad news, because this is a very small room, and if it casts on Razor Fiend, it's gonna hit everybody. There's no avoiding that, but right, you can see the animation, able to save again, and then this required a lot of luck. This was very lucky. So I'm just double saving. I'm like, okay, I actually did it. And then, right, the Vermlek, as I mentioned, that is the side effect of these saves. The mobs just inch closer and closer to the doorway, and we are, again, get very lucky here and are able to take this one down before its buddy gets to the front line. So we take it down, run to the corner, and we're like, okay, please, please, please. The other one hopefully doesn't come to us, and yep. Luckily, it doesn't come to us, and we are able to save again. And then there's just one more Vermlek out there, and that's the whole encounter. And this time, right, it's a bit further back, so I don't really have to deal with my party getting hit. I can just deal with Razor Fiend tanking that. But it falls over. I was running back to Ember to maybe get a heal, but turns out to be unnecessary here. And so this encounter, we got super lucky, as if you noticed, I didn't actually really even have to buff up. I'm just using my old buffs. I have not rested since the fight in the big room with all the cultists. So I took out that, I took out the Succubus, and I took out all of these guys without resting. I rested before, obviously, the first of those, but I didn't have to rest in between. So 3 big encounters on a single rest is huge.
Really.
Trying to push it as far as I can, right? I don't want to rest often, just in case there are any timers or hidden timers and things like that. So after that, we just proceed on up the stairs. Oh, well, not up the stairs. There's another group of Vermleks here, which don't prove to be too difficult. Unfortunately, the room is, again, very small, so you have to position very, very carefully if you want to avoid having your party being hit by them. But we are able to take them down pretty handily. I'm just going to fast forward through this really quick. So other than the positioning, it's a pretty straightforward fight. You can see one of them actually, right at the end of that fight, it took so long that one of them had actually decided to go for the back line there, but we're thankfully able to take it down before it goes and destroys everyone back there. And then we head on up the stairs. There are a few fights up here that are really tough. So these Schirs, it's a tough fight, but not super challenging. There are a lot of them. They do hit hard. But we eventually decide to pull them to this room with the painting in it and just tank and spank them in the doorway. Initially, but that turns out to not be the best option here. I opt to slumber them, try my luck slumbering them, so we can actually have one of them out of fight. Because they hit really, really hard. And so, slumber, and then obviously, right, as I did in Topaz Solutions, I have Woljif move to the back line to coup de grace, while the rest of my party takes out the other Schirs. And thankfully, it turns, it works. Thankfully, the coup de grace lands, and Woljif is able to take them out. And then, from that point on, pretty standard fight. So I'm actually going to fast forward through the rest of this. Nothing too crazy here, right? I try my hand at slumber again, and then I try my hand at slumber a third time. You might as well cast it on all of them. Just try your luck with them. But it doesn't work. So I'm going to fast forward through the rest. So yeah, as you can see here, just standard combat. But one thing, right, again, fight lasted so long that the Schirs just pulls off Razor Fiend, goes for the back line. So we end up having to finish it in turn-based mode, which is very unfortunate here. And so here, I'm speeding through this sequence very, very rapidly. Actually 50x speed. We try the guys in this library room. It's really rough. And so I scouted out a bit with Woljif, and the reason it's really rough is because there's a summoner in there who just keeps summoning dogs again, but he's basically inaccessible to CC. He's hiding around the corner, so I'm like, okay, that's not the best fight, and we have to rest. Razor Fiend has a negative level from the Succubus fight, and it's really proving to be a huge problem here. So there's a lot of save scumming that I do here to try and get rid of that negative level, because if I don't save, I have to roll a nat 20. I think, if I remember correctly, I had to roll a nat 20 to not have the negative level be permanent, so I have to keep reloading until I roll that. So then I get back the level. And then we opt to fight the guys in this room. This is a tough fight, because one of the enemies, Jeslyn here, she's level 11. She is ridiculously tough, and she summons swarms that are permanent, and there are a bunch of demons in this room that are also really painful and really tough to deal with. So what we actually end up doing, we have to cheese this fight. So I do end up cheesing the fight, and you're going to see how I managed to do that here. The good thing about this room is you do get 3 allies that spawn and kind of help you out. I think their presence is dependent on you completing certain things, and I'm not sure exactly what triggers them. But you can see, right, they spawn here, they come help out, and they actually tank a good amount of damage. So what I do here is the initial demons in this room, right? So there are a bunch of Cambion down in at the bottom there. You can see that they're shooting. Jeslyn is also back there, summoning swarms and buffing up right now. And so what I opt to do is, like, while she's buffing up, while the Cambions are shooting at me, I want to take down these demons as quickly as possible and just run, right? We have haste on and we're like, run. We're going to run back here and we're going to try and drop aggro and we're going to try and save. That way we don't have to deal with any of that stuff immediately after dealing with all those demons. And so, yeah, we're just praying. Standing in this room, it's like, save, come on, stealth. Razor Fiend is able to go into stealth, the rest of the party is able to go into stealth, and that is a signal that it's basically going to be good to save. And yeah, we're able to save there, and so we do. And then it's back into the room to just fight Jeslyn and the swarms and the Cambion. All together, it's still a rough encounter. So it's a two-phase encounter, and even with just Jeslyn left, it still proves to be ridiculously tough. But thankfully, we are able to take it down shortly after that. I do rebuff and have haste, cast all my new shiny, imbue my weapon with fire and stuff like that. And then we head on into the room, everybody in stealth, so we can get some nice hits off. You can see one of my allies, one of the good guys, is actually still alive here. And she summons plagues, and we do get some good hits off, right? We get her down to about half within the first, like, 5 seconds of the encounter there. And then it's down to luck, right? We have to hit her. It's entirely down to luck. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to try and move you to the back here, but that proves to be a bit of a mistake. Because, right, then the Cambion's like, okay, well, I'll just kill Oldif then. I'm going to stop focusing. But what it does do, so that actually does prove to be kind of pivotal, because what it does do is it transitions that guy from a ranged attacker into a melee attacker. So he switches to a sword, and then he runs around the table to attack Razor Fiend. And that actually proves to be very helpful here. And so here I'm casting Animate Dead on the other Cambion in the back line in the hopes that maybe he'll stop hitting, because those things hit hard. They hit really hard. So between all, and it works. So he switches over to the undead minions there, and the rest of my team is still focused on Jeslyn. But you can see it's a very, very tense and close fight. She's almost dead, right? She's like a couple of good hits away from dying. I'm just doing everything I can to stay alive. But thankfully we are able to get her down there. And then it's just down to the Cambions. By summoning the undead minions on the other Cambion, it also switched him to melee from range, so now he's in melee attacking Razor Fiend, which proves to be very beneficial. They still hit hard, but at least they're not, right, just shooting you from range, and Razor Fiend can hit them without taking a bunch of attacks and opportunity from the swarms. And so here, right, just using my heals, just using everything at my disposal. But the fight is basically over, so we're going to fast forward from here. Nothing too crazy from this point. So after that, right, just finish them off, and then loot up the room, and then that's it for this part. We're going to pick up tomorrow, continuing on with the guys in the library, and then onwards. Thanks for joining me, guys. See you tomorrow. And that's going to be it for me, boys and girls. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And don't forget to hit that bell notification on your way out. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. Razor Fiend, signing out.